Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm Tara. I'm the Library Director for Long Beach Public Library. I'm excited to have Council Member Liz Treston here with us, as well as Jeff Wice, a Long Beach resident and expert on the census. There were a lot of in-person things that the library and many other organizations were planning. To get people to fill out the 2020 census. Now we've had to shift to online and other physically distanced type of programs to encourage people to fill out the census. Um, so I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to talk about the importance of the census and where Long Beach is as of right now.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on this webinar. Today is April 1st, it's Census Day, so it's the official start of the census, although every household receives its census invitation mailer between March 12th and March 20th. The census is basically a count of every person residing in the United States. The data that the Census Bureau collects impacts everything from funding for our local schools, infrastructure, community development, and most importantly, healthcare. People might be asking, why are you bothering me about the census now when we've got the COVID pandemic? Well, an accurate census count will determine funding for health facilities, doctors, nurses, supplies, medicine, and I couldn't think of a more perfect example for of the importance of the census than to point out that Long Beach needs a hospital. And with a good census count, if we get everybody in there, then we'll have much better data for planning purposes and to show the county, the state, the federal government, the medical need on the barrier island. The census also directly impacts our representation in Mineola and Albany and Washington, D.C., because the census data not only is used to determine how about $650 billion is distributed to 300 plus programs, but determines the population basis for our member of Congress, our state senator, state assembly member, and county legislator, because every 10 years, based on the census, the lines of those districts get drawn. Now, Long Beach City itself, is unlikely ever to be divided for a district, but we have seen in the past where either Atlantic Beach or Lido Beach or Point Lookout are included in other districts. And a good population centers Long Beach in those districts so that we might be attached to meet population requirements with Oceanside and Island Park or the 5 towns, and not with Freeport or Merrick, which are further away. So all the numbers matter to keep our representation, our elected officials, Long Beach based. One thing we've learned in past censuses is that Long Beach is a hard to count community. That means the Census Bureau has had difficulty accounting for everybody who lives on the island. And an inaccurate count means less resources for the city, negatively impacting Long Beach for 10 years. And despite the pandemic, the federal government is conducting the census. There are deadlines by which the Census Bureau has to provide reapportionment to divide up congressional districts among the states. So we have to deal with life as it comes, and the census is one of those things we have to address. There are some deadlines the Census Bureau is pushing back. We did expect to have census enumerators begin hitting the streets for homes that did not reply to the census sometime in late April, early May. That's being put off. The census was supposed to have wrapped up in July. Now you have until August 14th to respond. So a lot of things are still in motion, but one thing is clear, that self-response early guarantees a much better count, less likelihood people will forget about the census later, and not have to bother with having someone knock at your door And one of the problems now, one of the issues we're facing is the Census Bureau may have a lack of people willing to go door to door, and people might not want to answer their doors to begin with. Long Beach also has a very unique population, being a beach community. Although we have a population of about 30,000 some odd people under the last census count, we have scores and scores of renters. And renters are people who unfortunately don't always respond to the census. They don't always register to vote. They don't always feel they have a commitment to the community, but the census counts everybody. And a note on who gets counted. If you're a Long Beach resident, you live here with your family year round, everybody gets counted. Your mailer went to your household and you include everybody who lives there. But if you live in Long Beach for most of the year and have a second home elsewhere, let's say Florida, you still should reply that Long Beach is your home. If you're a renter, yes, Long Beach is your home. We need you to be counted. Even if you're moving in 5 or 6 months, it needs to be counted. Now, colleges and universities are out because of the pandemic. Students have gone home. So it's important that under the rules, students be counted at their schools, but you should take a look at the residence rules when you answer the form to figure out where your student children ought to be counted. Right now, we've been tracking census response rates for about a week. And in New York State, approximately 31% of the state's households have responded to the census. That compares against places like Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska. They have response rates over 40% already. Now, it's only 2 weeks into the process, but New York is a good 10% points behind a few Midwestern states in getting the count done. We have to make sure everybody is counted. In Long Beach, 10 years ago, only 65% of our households responded to the census by sending back their census forms. 10 years ago also, you only replied by a paper form. This year, you have 3 different options. You have the ability to go online and complete the census. You can call an 800 telephone number, 800 area code telephone and respond. Or if you haven't replied in about 2-3 more weeks, every household that hasn't responded will receive a mailer, a questionnaire from the Census Bureau. But when we look at Long Beach and how the response rate has come along in the last 2 weeks, no area in Nassau County has reached a 40% response rate yet. As I mentioned, Long Beach has a response rate of 31.1%. The Census Bureau counts people in a geographic area known as a census tract. And a census tract consists of about 3,000 to 6,000 people. So just to bring this local, there are about a half a dozen or more census tracts in the city of Long Beach. Most of them are reporting at 30 to 40%, but we do have a few tracts that are reporting under 15%, and that's not good. I'll tell you where they are. We have one census tract bounded by Reynolds Channel to the north, Park Avenue to the south, and then bounded by Lindell Boulevard to the west and Long Beach Road to the east. That North Park is a hard to count area that is falling behind. The area in Long Beach also that is west of Delaware Avenue in the West End is also responding at under 15%. And that's a community with a lot of renters, so efforts need to be made, especially in those 2 communities. Now, this is a call for Long Beach, but we're doing this through the library, and the library does include other parts of the island, including Point Lookout. So I'll mention that the response rates in all of Atlantic Beach and all of Lido Beach and Point Lookout are also below 15% of the households responding. A note on Point Lookout, because Point Lookout, to my understanding, does not get door-to-door mail delivery, but goes to the post office in the downtown part of Point Lookout, they are going to receive paper questionnaires and visits by people, Census Bureau enumerators going door to door. That process is being postponed, which means that nobody yet in Point Lookout is being counted. The Census Bureau has every plan to count them, but for those of you that might be living in or know of people in Point Lookout, the census count has not yet begun there. So that's basically the update on where we are now. I'll be glad to answer questions later on in the program. Thank you.
And now I'll hand it over to Liz as she fills out her census.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you to the Long Beach Library. As Jeff said, the census is very important, and you may have received in the mail, it's upside down, this piece of paper a while ago, and it has on it your census ID number. And then if you ignored that, then you received a postcard to remind you that your response is actually required by law. So I'm going to attempt to do the census online to show just how easy it is. Or maybe not. So you could do it on your phone. Jeff suggested I do this with you. Putting in my passcode. Then I'm going to go to My Census 2020.
Here's what I found.
Here's what she found. And take the census. Here we go. I hope everyone is keeping safe during this time. I know this may seem very odd that we are doing this, but it has to be done for our future. Start questionnaire. Ding. Log in. I have my 12-digit number. I'm putting that in. Yeah. To FRT, just for kids at home. Log in. And I am completing, and it gives you my address. Yes. Next. Are you living? Yes. At the home address. What is the name and telephone number? And when you do it on your phone, it fills it out for you automatically. Household questions. You're going to be asking questions about your household. Press start to begin. Including yourself, how many people will be living at your address on April 1st, 2020. Keep counting. Putting that number in. Next. What is the name of each person? So far we have me. And what? That. And it gives you the list of all the people. And you can just write them in real quick. And again, when you do it on your smartphone, it fills it out automatically once you start typing. And last name. I'm not 15, so I'm a little slower than most. Next, we don't want to miss any people who might have stayed at my address on April. For example, well, due to the quarantine, no one has been here. And were there additional people? No. Was the house, apartment, or mobile home owned, now is it owned by you, owned by someone in the household, rented, occupied without payment? So I own my home. Of the people who lived at my address who owned the home, I select my name. Select questions. So now it's going to ask questions about you and the people in your home. They'll ask what sex you are. They will ask my date of birth. 3/21. Yes, I was in quarantine for my birthday. And because my birthday year is very long, I have to scroll down very far to find what year I've been born. Was born. Thank you. Next, they will ask if you are Hispanic, Latino, or of Spanish origin. Then they will ask your race. If this person does not, please continue. So select one or more boxes and enter origins. So primarily Irish. Hopefully I did that correct. Oh no, Jeff, I may need your help. There we go. Now I have to pick what to do it for, and I'll continue on. Do you want me to continue on? I think this is pretty, well, we might as well do it, yes? So there's only 4 people in my house. And we are of actually many. So they'll ask how we're related. She's my sister. Oh, I know her birthday. Her date of birth is, now this is where I don't have to scroll as far for her date of year of birth. And she is also of Irish background with English. We did take that Ancestry.com thing a while ago. Okay, here's where Ben comes in. Ben is, I'm looking for stepson, no, other relative. He is a boy. He was born September. He was supposed to be born September 11th, 2001, but he stayed in there for a little bit longer and born in another time when we also had to adjust to another new normal. And so he is not, okay, this is where it might be tricky because he is other. And let me put that in. And just same for, does anyone want to chime in while I'm doing this? Other relative?
What question are you on?
I am currently on the last household member's birth date, which I always get incorrect, but this time I'm going to get the right date. It's actually the
Well, we say it's 10 minutes, 10 questions per person, so.
Oh, really? Well, I'm almost done
Right.
with that person. And he's older than I am. And here we go. And nope. He is not. And he is an other. Very smart, Jeff, to suggest that you do this on the phone. Again, everything comes up. Final questions. We would like to make sure everyone is counted. Usually stay elsewhere, no. Almost finished. You must select submit to complete your questionnaire. Would you like to submit? Yes. Thank you for completing your 2020 census.
And
How'd I do?
Hooray,
That was
well done.
definitely less than 10 minutes per person. So
Yes.
great job, Liz.
If you have the ability to have, if you have a smartphone, that's the way to go, unless of course, but always check for autocorrect. But thank you. That was easy and painless. Everyone needs to do it, especially you, West End.
Yes. So now I'm going to turn it over to Natasha, who's going to show you how easy it is to do the census on your computer.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm going to show you my screens and walk you through completing the census online. So let me just pull that up for you. Oops. Okay. There we go. Okay, can everyone see? All right. So this is what the page looks like when you navigate there, whether it's online or through your phone. If you do need to change the languages, there are plenty of options up here. And if you want to have a look at their instructions, you can also pull this up and it gives you a little breakdown of what you can expect. So I'm going to start the questionnaire. So if you have your mailer, you will have the 12-digit census ID. If you do not, you can actually use your address along with a cross street. So I'm going to do that option so you can see what it looks like. So we are in New York. Okay. And I am going to type in, can anyone guess what address I'm using?
I think it might be the library.
It is our wonderful library. I'm gonna scroll down to New York because we are in New York, not California. Okay, and we hit next. It confirms your address and we hit submit. And it asks for your name and number. I'm going to put a lovely dummy name in here. Okay. They will only contact you if they need to follow up. So you don't have to worry about this. If you complete everything, then it should be easy to do that. We hit next. So here you can see it starts with the household questions and then it goes down to the people questions. So let's start. So we're going to say Jane and John Doe are living at this address. So I've already inputted Jane's name, so now I will put in John. And so if you did have more than one, you would just add another person and enter their name. And we hit next. Here it confirms the people you have listed and if you want to add anyone else. Oh, whoops. And if you miss something, you get a little blue pop-up box at the top as a reminder. Okay. So on April 1st, we're going to say that this Place of residence is rented. And who rented it? Jane and John together. And that's it for our household questions. Now we start with Jane's people questions. She identifies as a female. Oh, let's make it easy. January 1st. She's a young lady. Okay. Don't forget, if you've got small children, it's important to count them as well. And we're going to say, no, she is not of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. And we are going to select her race. Let's say she is Korean. And that's it for Jane. It brings us back to the screen, and now we answer the same questions for John. John is her opposite sex husband.
I'll just note there that you have the option for a same-sex spouse as well.
Yes. Okay, he identifies as male. And we're going to enter his birth date. All right, and we hit next. We're going to say no. And let's say John is African American. Now they do want you to specify. So let's say that he is from Trinidad. And we scroll down and we hit next. And then it brings us to our final question. Okay, and it's a reminder to make sure that you've got everybody that's in your household. Okay, and they do not live anywhere else. And we hit next. So this is the final screen where you would submit your questionnaire. Now, because this is a dummy session, I'm not going to submit it, but you would hit submit, and then you would get a confirmation page. And if you did want to print it for your records, you can do that if you have a printer. Other than that, you are all done.
If I could just add, the questions we looked at race and ethnicity are unique to this census in that they ask you, the option of designating your family's ethnicity or country of origin. So if you're white, let's say, you have the option of filling in Russia, Italy, Germany, Ireland. So if you've got the pride of that, you should put that down, but you're not obligated to. Similarly, if you are African American, you should consider the country of origin if you know that, and it's especially useful in the Hispanic category if you are Puerto Rican or Dominican or from some other country. And again, one thing we didn't mention before is that all the information that you put down on the census form is confidential and cannot be shared by the Census Bureau with any other federal agency. There is it's a violation of federal law to share any information with anybody, anyone outside the Census Bureau, with ICE, IRS, state government, local government, law enforcement. It simply cannot be done. So we have the assurances of federal law that it won't happen, and people should feel comfortable responding to the census with the understanding that they cannot share the information. That's important because last year there was the threat of a citizenship question that had a chilling effect on a lot of people who did not trust government and looked at this as a way to find them and hand them over to ICE for deportation. But that is not the case.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Um, I think a few more important things to note, as well as a question that I'm hearing from a lot of people. Um, in regards to the ethnicity, um, it if your country of origin is a Middle Eastern or an Arab country, um, according to the US Census, you are considered white, even though you yourself may not identify as such. So it may be especially important for you to enter in your country of origin. Egypt, Lebanon, Iraq, Turkey, Iran, um, countries of origin in the Middle East, North African region. Um, the other important thing that I want to highlight is that children under the age of 5 are also an undercounted population. So even if you have a newborn, you want to make sure that they're counted, because school funding depends on an accurate count, and that affects your child even if they were just born, all the way through age 10, when there will be when we'll have another census. And then the question that I've been hearing, and actually that I was wondering about, and Jeff, you made mention of it, is a lot of people's children are home right now. A lot of them are home because colleges are not in session, they're online. But for example, my daughter came home for the duration of this pandemic. She's not in college, but she came home, and I counted her here because I don't know how long she's going to be here, especially with employment these days being tenuous. So I counted her for here. Can you give any further guidance on that?
That's a tricky question because the Census Bureau is asking that college students answer the census from where they live most of the year, and that means at school. Now, if students live in dormitories, then the university or college itself counts them, and the students don't really have any connection to fill out the form since the school does it for them. But we saw in the census form, does somebody in this household spend most of the time someplace else in the country? And they actually will cross-check to see if names appear twice, whether they're counted in the right place. And that's why there's a phone number requested of you in case there's a question or discrepancy. Now, the big unanswerable question is that we don't know what's going to happen later today or a week or a month from now. So Tara was correct in that we don't know when students go back to school or what's going to happen. We're really in uncharted territory here. But the census counting rules can be complex, and the best thing to do is to be honest to the best of your ability. That's what I would suggest.
Great.
Jeff, I have another question too. Is there some census forms that are more elaborate and ask more questions?
There is a more elaborate form. For those of you who have been around longer before 1990, you would have received either the short form, the kind of a census form we just answered here in this webinar, or what they used to call the long form, where about 1 in 20 families received a rather long questionnaire for April 1st. That was eliminated 30 years ago, and what the Census Bureau does now is conduct something called the American Community Survey. That is an ongoing annual census survey of households where about 1 in 25 households will be contacted by the Census Bureau and ask questions about citizenship, travel, your house, more in-depth socioeconomic questions. But those questions are not asked in the decennial census that takes place only once every 10 years, and what we're talking about, which is what we're talking about now.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, any more questions? Thank you so much, everyone. As I mentioned at the beginning, the library was going to be a spot where people could come in and complete their census on the computer and receive assistance from library staff. Since the library buildings are closed, we do want to make sure that you know that you can get help and get any questions you want answered through our virtual services. If you're stuck on a question, if you don't know what to do in a particular spot, it might take us a little longer to help you on the phone, since we can't actually see your phone or see your computer. But you are more than welcome to call the library. Our number right now for virtual services is 516-350-5394. You can also chat with us via our website or message us on social media, and we will be glad to help in the ways that we can right now.
Thank you, Tara. And I just want to add that during this very difficult time we are all in, that the city of Long Beach is also there for everyone, not only in the city, but on our entire barrier island. And as Jeff said, it's important for us to fill out this census regarding the hospital, which is a big concern of very many people. If we could show the numbers that we have are true, then perhaps down the line we can get further assistance. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. Take care and stay safe.
Goodbye.
Thank you.